The afternoon sun streamed through the tall glass windows of Ivory Towers, one of the most exclusive residential buildings in the city. The marble floors gleamed as if freshly polished, reflecting the crystal chandelier that hung from the ceiling, like a frozen waterfall. It was the kind of place where money whispered from every corner. May stood at the entrance, clutching her worn canvas tote bag against her side. Her simple blue dress had seen better days, and her practical shoes were scuffed from chasing after 20 energetic 5-year-olds all day. The kindergarten finger paint on her sleeve hadn't completely washed out, despite her best efforts in the staff bathroom sink. "Good afternoon, ma'am," the doorman said with a polite nod, though his eyes betrayed a hint of curiosity. People who looked like May rarely entered Ivory Towers through the front door. "Hello?" May replied with a warm smile. Her voice was soft, but clear, carrying the gentle confidence of someone comfortable in her own skin. "I'm heading up to the penthouse." The doorman's eyebrows rose slightly, but he quickly composed his expression. "Of course, the elevators are just past the lobby." May thanked him and made her way across the expansive lobby, her footsteps echoing against the marble. A few well-dressed residents glanced her way, their gazes lingering a beat too long on her simple attire. She was used to these looks, the slight confusion, the quick assessment, the dismissal. As she approached the bank of elevators, she noticed a group of women already waiting. They stood in a tight circle, their laughter rising and falling like music. Each woman looked as if she had stepped from the pages of a luxury magazine. Designer clothes, perfect hair, jewelry that caught the light with every movement. The elevator dinged and the women moved forward as one. May followed, stepping in after them. The space suddenly felt smaller, filled with the scent of expensive perfume. "Floor?" one of the women asked without looking at May. Her voice was cool, clipped. "Penthouse, please," May answered. This got their attention. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her, taking in her simple dress, her worn bag, the paint stain on her sleeve. One woman, tall with sleek black hair and a red dress that probably cost more than May's monthly salary, raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Penthouse?" she repeated, her finger hovering over the button panel. May nodded. "Yes, thank you." The woman pressed the button, then exchanged a look with her companions. The elevator began its smooth ascent and an uncomfortable silence fell over the small space. May shifted her weight from one foot to another. Inside her tote bag was a small, carefully wrapped package, a handmade anniversary gift she'd been working on during lunch breaks for weeks. 5 years of marriage today. The thought brought a small smile to her face despite the tension in the elevator. "I love your bracelet," one of the women suddenly said to another, her voice deliberately loud. "Is it the new collection?" "Yes," her friend replied, extending her wrist to display an intricate gold bracelet studded with tiny diamonds. "My husband brought it back from Paris last week. Limited edition." "Gorgeous," the third woman sighed. "I told mine I wanted one, but he was too busy closing that hotel deal in Singapore." The fourth woman, shorter than the others but with an air of authority, laughed lightly. "Well, mine has promised me the matching necklace for our anniversary. 20 years deserves something special, he says." May's eyes remained fixed on the climbing floor numbers. 22, 23, 24. "Speaking of special," the woman in the red dress said, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that was clearly meant to be heard. "I heard the cleaners are coming in through the main entrance now. The service elevator must be broken again." A ripple of laughter went through the group. "Maybe she's applying for a position," another suggested, not bothering to lower her voice. Though she should have dressed more professionally, May felt her cheeks grow warm, but she kept her gaze forward. The paint stain on her sleeve suddenly felt like a spotlight. "Or maybe she's delivering something," the third woman offered. "Though I don't know what kind of delivery service uses whatever that bag is." More laughter. The elevator continued its climb. 28, 29, 30. "Excuse me." The woman in the red dress finally addressed May directly, her tone falsely sweet. "I don't think I've seen you in the building before. Are you visiting someone?" Before May could answer, another woman cut in. "Oh, Lynn, don't be silly. She's obviously not a resident. She turned to May with a tight smile. The domestic staff usually use the service entrance, dear. It's around the back. May took a deep breath. I'm not staff, she said simply. The women exchanged glances. Oh? Lynn in the red dress tilted her head. Then you must be lost? This is a private residence building. I'm not lost, May replied. Her voice remained calm, though her hand tightened around the strap of her bag. The shortest woman sniffed and deliberately moved her designer purse to her other side, away from May. Well, security is clearly slipping. Anyone can just walk in these days. The floor numbers continued to climb. 35, 36, 37. I heard the penthouse sold last year, one woman whispered to another, though not quietly enough. To some tech billionaire. Very private. No one's even seen his wife. Wife? Another scoffed. Please. Men like that don't have wives, they have arrangements. They all laughed again, throwing casual glances at May, who stood silently in the corner of the elevator. Maybe she's the arrangement, Lynn suggested with a smirk, looking May up and down. Though you'd think with all that money he could afford better packaging. The laughter grew louder. May felt her chest tighten, but she held her head high. The carefully wrapped package in her bag suddenly felt heavy. She'd spent weeks finding the perfect gift. A hand-painted photo album filled with memories of their 5 years together. It wasn't expensive, not by Ivory Towers standards, but it was made with love. You know, the shortest woman said, leaning inconspiratorially to her friends but keeping her voice deliberately audible. I always say you can tell a person's worth by their shoes. She glanced pointedly at May's practical flats. And some people simply aren't worth much at all. The elevator finally dinged as it reached the penthouse level. The doors slid open to reveal a private foyer with only 2 doors. The penthouse, split into east and west wings. To the women's surprise, May stepped forward. They had clearly expected her to remain on the elevator, perhaps going to some other floor after they exited. Excuse me, May said politely, needing to pass through their tight circle. The women moved aside, their expressions a mixture of confusion and disdain. You're actually getting off here? Lynn asked, her tone incredulous. May nodded, stepping into the foyer. Which side are you going to? Another woman demanded, suddenly suspicious. East or west? West, May answered, moving toward the door on the left. The women followed her out of the elevator, their high heels clicking against the marble floor of the foyer. They headed toward the east penthouse door, but their pace slowed as they watched. May approached the west door. Should we call security? One of them whispered, not nearly quietly enough. Lynn shook her head, a malicious curiosity in her eyes. Wait, I want to see this. They paused by their door, watching as May reached into her bag. Instead of pulling out a cleaning cloth or delivery package as they clearly expected, she withdrew a key card. Oh, this is too good, Lynn murmured to her friends. She actually thinks she can get in. The women stifled giggles behind manicured hands as May slid the key card into the slot. To their visible shock, the light turned green, and a soft click indicated the door had unlocked. Before May could open the door, it swung inward from the inside. A tall man stood in the doorway, his face lighting up at the sight of her. There. You are, he exclaimed, his deep voice carrying across the foyer. I was starting to worry. The man was dressed casually in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, but everything about him, from his posture to the quiet confidence in his eyes, spoke of wealth and power. This was clearly Jin Zhao, the reclusive tech billionaire who had purchased the West Penthouse a year ago. Sorry I'm late, May said, her entire demeanor softening as she looked at him. The finger-painting activity went a little longer than planned. She gestured ruefully at the stain on her sleeve. Jin laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Battle scars from the kindergarten trenches? He took her hand, pulling her gently toward him. I've missed you today. His eyes fell on the tote bag. Is that what I think it is? May smiled, the tension from the elevator encounter melting away. Maybe. It's our anniversary, isn't it? 5 years, Jin confirmed, his expression tender. He leaned down to kiss her cheek, seemingly oblivious to the four women frozen in shock across the foyer. And still the luckiest day of my life. As May stepped into the penthouse, Jin finally noticed the women standing by the east door. He nodded politely in their direction, but his attention quickly returned to his wife. "How was your day teaching?" he asked as the door began to close behind them. "Did the new science project work out?" The last thing the women saw before the doctor shut completely was May's face, animated and happy as she began to tell her husband about her day, the cruel elevator encounter apparently forgotten. The four women stood in stunned silence, their keys forgotten in their hands. "Was that?" One of them began, her voice barely above a whisper. Jin Zhao's wife, Lin, confirmed, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. "But she's so normal." Another finished, the word sounding strange on her lips. The women looked at each other, the reality of what had just happened and what they had just done slowly sinking in. The elevator dinged again behind them, but none of them moved to hold it. They were too busy staring at the closed door of the west penthouse, where a kindergarten teacher with paint on her sleeve had just gone home to her billionaire husband, leaving four wealthy women to face an uncomfortable truth about themselves in the silent marble foyer. The morning after the elevator incident, May woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse. Despite living here for nearly a year, she still sometimes felt like a visitor in this vast space with its sleek furniture and breathtaking city views. Jin's arm was draped around her waist, his breathing deep and even. She carefully slipped out of bed, trying not to wake him. Yesterday's anniversary celebration had been perfect. A quiet dinner at home, just the two of them. Jin had loved the hand-painted photo album she'd made, spending over an hour going through each page, reminiscing about their 5 years together. His gift to her had been equally thoughtful. A small, elegant telescope for the balcony, because she'd once mentioned wanting to see the stars more clearly. In the kitchen, May started the coffee maker and pulled out ingredients for breakfast. The memory of those women in the elevator flickered through her mind, but she pushed it away. Their judgment wasn't worth dwelling on. The sound of bare feet on the hardwood floor announced Jin's arrival. His hair was tousled from sleep, making him look younger than his 38 years. "Morning," he mumbled, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "You're up early." "School day," she reminded him, turning in his embrace to kiss him good morning. "Some of us can't make our own hours, Mr. Tech Genius." He laughed, moving to pour coffee for them both. "Want me to drive you today?" May shook her head as she whisked eggs in a bowl. "I like the subway. Keeps me grounded." "You're already the most grounded person I know," Jin said, leaning against the counter. "That's why I fell for you, remember? The only woman at that charity gala who told me my app idea was kind of boring." May grinned at the memory. "It was boring. A shopping app that recommended ties based on your socks? Come on." Brutal honesty from the most beautiful woman in the room. Jin sighed dramatically. "I didn't stand a chance." They ate breakfast together at the kitchen island, talking about their plans for the day. Jin had meetings with investors. May had 20 kindergarteners waiting to learn about the water cycle. "Oh, I meant to tell you," Jin said, as May was clearing their plates. "I got a strange email from the building management this morning. Something about a complaint from residents about security protocols. Did something happen yesterday?" May hesitated, then shrugged. "Just some women in the elevator who didn't think I belonged here." Jin's expression darkened. "What do you mean? What did they say to you?" "Nothing worth repeating," May replied, turning on the faucet to rinse the dishes. "It's fine, Jin. Not the first time, won't be the last." Jin came up beside her, gently turning off the water and taking her hands in his. "It's not fine. This is your home. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of treatment." "It's not a big deal," May insisted. "They didn't know who I was." "That shouldn't matter," Jin said firmly. "No one deserves to be treated poorly based on how they look or what they wear." May squeezed his hands. "I know. But getting upset doesn't help anything." She glanced at the clock on the wall. I need to get ready or I'll be late. Half an hour later, dressed in a simple yellow dress with a light cardigan, May kissed Jin goodbye and headed for the elevator. As the doors opened, she found herself face to face with the woman in the red dress from yesterday. Lin's eyes widened in recognition, then immediately dropped to the floor. She was dressed impeccably again, this time in a tailored cream suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun. "Good morning," May said politely as she stepped into the elevator. Good morning," Lin stammered, clearly uncomfortable. After a moment of awkward silence, she added, "You're Mrs. Zhao." It wasn't a question, but May nodded anyway. "Yes, and you are?" "Lynn Watkins," the woman replied, her usually confident voice subdued. I live in the East Penthouse with my husband, Thomas." May smiled. "Nice to meet you officially." The elevator descended in silence for several floors before Lynn spoke again. "About yesterday," she began, her manicured fingers fidgeting with her designer handbag. "My friends and our behavior was inexcusable." May studied the woman's face. There was genuine discomfort there, though whether from true remorse or simply embarrassment at being caught was hard to tell. "It was unpleasant," May acknowledged. "But it's over now." Lynn looked surprised by the simple response. "My husband told me who your husband is after I mentioned the incident. Jin Zhao is, well, he's practically a legend in the tech world. Thomas has been trying to get a meeting with him for months." May thought. There it was. The real reason for this awkward apology attempt. "Jin is very selective about his business meetings," she said neutrally. Lynn nodded quickly. Of course, I wanted to apologize properly. What we said was inappropriate. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you." The elevator reached the lobby, and the doors slid open. May stepped out, then turned back to face Lynn. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "there is something you could do." Lynn's face brightened with hope. "Anything. The kindergarten where I teach is having a fundraiser next week. We're trying to raise money for new playground equipment. Perhaps you and your friends would like to attend?" Lynn blinked, clearly not expecting this request. "A kindergarten fundraiser?" "Yes," May confirmed. "It's not as glamorous as the charity galas you're probably used to. Punch and cookies instead of champagne and canapes. But the cause is important." After a moment's hesitation, Lynn nodded. "Yes, of course we'd be happy to attend. And donate, naturally." May smiled. "Wonderful. I'll have an invitation sent to your apartment." With a small wave, she turned and walked across the lobby. "Mrs. Zhao," Lynn called after her. May paused and looked back. Do you always take the subway to work? Your husband doesn't drive you?" "I prefer the subway," May replied simply. "Have a good day, Mrs. Watkins." Outside, the spring air was crisp and fresh. May walked the short distance to the subway station, her mind already shifting to her lesson plans for the day. The water cycle, little paper raindrop puppets, 20 eager faces waiting to learn. The subway car was crowded as usual, but May managed to find a seat next to an elderly man reading a newspaper. She pulled out a children's book from her tote bag, researched for next week's storytelling session, and immersed herself in the colorful pages. 3 stops before her destination, a group of well-dressed business people boarded the train. As the car jerked into motion, one of them, a woman in a pantsuit clutching a coffee cup, lost her balance and stumbled, spilling her drink across May's yellow dress. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," the woman exclaimed, horrified. May looked down at the large brown stain spreading across her lap. "So much for staying clean today." "It's okay," she assured the woman, who was frantically offering napkins from her purse. "Really, don't worry about it." "I'll pay for the dry cleaning," the woman insisted, "or a new dress. Please let me make this right." May accepted the napkins and dabbed at the stain. "It's just coffee. It'll wash out." The woman looked distressed. "But your dress is ruined for the day. Aren't you going to work?" "I am," May confirmed, smiling slightly. "But I teach kindergarten. By lunchtime, I'll probably have paint and glue on me too." This is just getting a head start on the inevitable. The woman's tension eased a bit. Kindergarten? That must be challenging. It is, May agreed, but also wonderful. As the subway continued its journey, the woman asked more questions about teaching young children. By the time May reached her stop, the coffee incident was forgotten, and she'd gained a potential volunteer for the school's reading program. The elementary school where May taught was a stark contrast to Ivory Towers. The building was old but well-maintained, with colorful murals painted on the exterior walls. Children's artwork lined the hallways, and the sounds of young voices filled the air. "Ms. May!" Several small voices cried as she entered her classroom. A group of 5-year-olds rushed to greet her, their eyes wide as they noticed the coffee stain. "What happened to your pretty dress?" A little girl named Zoe asked, pointing at the brown mark. "Someone spilled coffee on the subway," May explained, setting her bag on her desk. "Accidents happen. My mom would be really mad," a boy named Davy commented seriously. "She says her clothes cost a lot of money." May hung up her cardigan. "Well, clothes are just things, and things can be replaced. Now, who remembers what we're learning about today?" "The water cycle," the children chorused. "That's right," May clapped her hands together. "And we're going to make our very own rain clouds. Who's ready to get a little wet?" The day passed in a blur of activity. By the time the last child was picked up, May had indeed added paint, glitter, and what appeared to be apple juice to the coffee stain on her dress. She cleaned up the classroom, prepared materials for tomorrow, and finally headed home exhausted but content. When she emerged from the subway station near Ivory Towers, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the street. As she approached the building, she noticed a small commotion at the entrance. A crowd of photographers was gathered, cameras flashing. May slowed her pace, frowning. Jin occasionally attracted media attention, but they were usually careful to keep their home address private. As she got closer, she realized the photographers weren't focused on the building itself but on a group of people emerging from a sleek black car. With a jolt of surprise, May recognized one of them as Thomas Watkins, Lynn's husband. The business tycoon was shaking hands with another man, a man May knew very well. Jin stood at the entrance of Ivory Towers, dressed in one of his rare business suits, looking every bit the tech billionaire the world knew him to be. As cameras flashed around him, his eyes scanned the street and landed on May. His face broke into a genuine smile, and without regard for the photographers or the important businessman beside him, Jin stepped away from the crowd and walked toward his paint-stained, coffee-splattered wife. The cameras swiveled following his movement, and suddenly May found herself the center of attention as Jin reached her side. "There you are," he said warmly, taking her hand. "I've been waiting for you." The cameras flashed rapidly as Jin took May's hand. She blinked, momentarily blinded by the bright lights, suddenly aware of her coffee-stained dress and the paint smudges on her hands. "What's going on?" she whispered to Jin as he guided her toward the building entrance, where Thomas Watkins and several other business-suited individuals waited. "Breakthrough deal," Jin murmured back. "Thomas's company finally agreed to partner with us on the educational software project, the one I've been talking about for months." May nodded, remembering Jin's passionate late-night discussions about creating affordable learning technology for underfunded schools. It had been his dream project for years, but finding the right corporate partners had proven difficult. Thomas Watkins stepped forward, his hand extended toward May. "Mrs. Zhao, a pleasure to finally meet you properly." His eyes flickered briefly to her stained dress, but his smile remained fixed. "My wife has mentioned you." "Has she?" May replied, accepting his handshake with a polite smile. "How nice." Behind Thomas, Lynn hovered uncertainly, dressed in an elegant evening gown that suggested they had interrupted some sort of celebration. Her expression was a mixture of embarrassment and curiosity as she observed the easy way Jin kept his arm around May's waist. "We were just about to head upstairs for a small celebration dinner," Thomas explained. "Would you care to join us? We have reservations at Azura in an hour, but thought we might have drinks first." Jin glanced at May, his eyes asking a silent question. She gave him a tiny nod. We'd be delighted, Jin said, though I think we'll need a few minutes to freshen up first. Thomas beamed. Of course, of course. We'll gather in our penthouse in, say, 30 minutes. As they entered the building, the doorman held the elevator for their group. May found herself once again in a small space with Lynn, though this time the other women from the previous day were absent. In their place were 3 men in expensive suits, business associates of Thomas, judging by their conversation. Quite a coincidence, Lynn said quietly to May as the men discussed market projections. My husband has been trying to meet with yours for months, and now suddenly the deal goes through. May met the woman's gaze evenly. Jin makes business decisions based on merit, not social connections. Lynn's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Of course. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. She hesitated, then added, The kindergarten fundraiser invitation arrived this morning. We've cleared our schedule to attend. Wonderful, May replied. The children will be thrilled to have visitors. The elevator stopped at the penthouse level, and they all stepped out into the shared foyer. Before the group split toward their respective homes, Thomas called out, 30 minutes then. Looking forward to celebrating with you both. Inside their penthouse, Jin immediately loosened his tie with a sigh of relief. Sorry about the ambush. The deal closed faster than expected, and suddenly there were photographers and handshakes, and he gestured vaguely. It's fine, May assured him, already heading toward the bedroom to change. It's your big educational project. You should celebrate. Jin followed her, leaning against the doorframe as she searched through the closet. You know you don't have to come if you're tired. I can make an excuse. May pulled out a simple black dress, one of the few designer items she owned, a gift from Jin on her last birthday. And miss seeing the look on Lynn's face when I show up looking presentable? Not a chance, Jin laughed. You always look beautiful. His expression grew more serious. But are you sure you're okay with this? These business dinners can be tedious. And after a full day of teaching, Jin, May interrupted gently. This project matters to you, which means it matters to me. Besides, I invited Lynn and her friends to my school fundraiser. Might as well see what I'm getting myself into. 30 minutes later, they knocked on the east penthouse door. Lynn herself opened it, her surprise at May's transformation poorly concealed. The simple black dress fit May perfectly, highlighting her natural grace. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical style for teaching, now fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Welcome, Lynn said, stepping aside to let them enter. Everyone's in the living room. The east penthouse was a mirror image of their own in layout, but the similarities ended there. Where Jin and May had chosen warm, comfortable furnishings, the Watkins home was a showcase of trendy luxury, all chrome and glass and stark white surfaces. Artwork that looked more expensive than personal adorned the walls. In the living room, Thomas was holding court with his business associates, gesturing with a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. He broke off mid-sentence when he spotted Jin and May. There they are, he exclaimed. The man of the hour and his lovely wife. Jin smiled politely as Thomas introduced them to the group. Names and titles washed over May. Corporate executives, venture capitalists, a tech journalist, until one introduction made her pause. And this is Vicky Chen, head of the educational division, Thomas said, indicating a woman in a navy pantsuit who had been quietly observing from the corner. We've met, May said with a genuine smile, extending her hand, though under slightly messier circumstances this morning. Vicky's eyes widened in recognition. The kindergarten teacher from the subway, the coffee. I'm still so sorry about that. You know each other? Thomas asked, surprised. Ms. Chen spilled coffee on me this morning, May explained. Complete accident. On your way to work at Jin Zhao's company? Thomas asked Vicky, confused. No, on my way to observe at Westridge Elementary, Vicky clarified. Part of our educational outreach program. She turned to May. I had no idea you were connected to this project. What a small world. Tiny, Lynn muttered, handing May a glass of champagne with a strained smile. As the evening progressed, May found herself drawn into a fascinating conversation with Vicky about early childhood education. The corporate executive was genuinely interested in May's classroom experiences and had insightful questions about how technology could better serve young learners. The problem with most educational software, May explained, is that it's designed by people who haven't been in a classroom since they were students themselves. They don't understand the practical realities. Vicky nodded eagerly. Exactly. That's why we've been pushing for more teacher input in the development process. But it's been an uphill battle convincing the board. Not anymore, Jin said, joining their conversation. That's actually part of why I wanted to work with Watkins Corp. Vicky's division has the best reputation for collaborating with educators. He smiled at May. And now I understand why. Across the room, Lynn watched the three of them with an unreadable expression. When Thomas called everyone to move toward the door for their restaurant reservation, she quickly approached May. "Your husband is not what I expected," Lynn said in a low voice. "For someone worth billions, he's surprisingly normal." May tilted her head. "What did you expect?" Lynn's gaze drifted to where Thomas was loudly boasting about his new yacht to one of the business associates. "I don't know. More like them, I suppose. More like my husband." There was something in her tone, a hint of dissatisfaction, perhaps even loneliness, that made May see Lynn differently. Beyond the designer clothes and perfect makeup was a woman who might be trapped in her own gilded cage. "Not all wealthy people are the same," May said gently. "Just like not all kindergarten teachers are the same." Lynn met her eyes, a flash of understanding passing between them. "No, I suppose they're not." She hesitated, then added, "About the fundraiser. I was thinking, would it be helpful if I brought some of my connections? People who might be interested in supporting education?" May smiled. "That would be wonderful. The school could really use the help." The evening continued at Azura, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. As expected, the conversation revolved largely around business, market shares, investment opportunities, technology trends. May listened politely, occasionally catching Jin's eye across the table. He would give her a small, private smile that seemed to say, "Just a little longer." During dessert, Thomas tapped his glass for attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, "to new partnerships and exciting ventures. Jin, your educational software platform is going to revolutionize learning for underprivileged schools, and Watkins Corporation is proud to be part of it." Everyone raised their glasses, but Thomas wasn't finished. "And I must say," he continued, his voice slightly louder than necessary, "meeting your wife has been a revelation. A kindergarten teacher. How refreshingly unique." Jin's smile remained pleasant, but May noticed his jaw tighten slightly. "I've always believed," Jin said carefully, "that real value comes from making a difference, not just making money. May teaches children to read, to think, to create. There's no more important work than that." A brief silence fell over the table. It wasn't the expected response to what had been a somewhat condescending comment. Vicky Chen broke the moment by raising her glass again. "To teachers, then, the true architects of our future." As glasses clinked, May felt Jin's hand find hers under the table. His touch was warm, reassuring. Later, as they walked back to Ivory Towers through the quiet night streets, Jin sighed heavily. "I'm sorry about Thomas. He can be oblivious," May suggested with a small laugh. "That's a polite way of putting it." Jin shook his head. "But the partnership is important for the project. With their distribution network, we can reach twice as many schools." May squeezed his hand. "Then it's worth enduring a few awkward dinners." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights painting patterns on the sidewalk ahead of them. "Lynn invited me to lunch tomorrow," May said suddenly. "With her friends from the elevator." Jin stopped walking, turning to face her. "The same women who were so cruel to you? Why would you agree to that?" May shrugged. "I'm curious, I guess. And maybe—" She paused, considering her words. "Maybe they're not as awful as they seemed. Maybe they're just Lost. Jin studied her, face in the dim light. You always look for the good in people. It's one of the things I love most about you. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Just promise you'll walk away if they're unkind again. I promise, May said, standing on tiptoe to kiss him softly. But I don't think they will be. Not now that they know I'm a billionaire's wife. Jin frowned. That shouldn't matter. No, May agreed, taking his hand again as they resumed walking. It shouldn't, but for some people it's the only thing that does. As Ivory Towers came into view, its glass facade gleaming in the night, May wondered what tomorrow's lunch would bring, and whether Lynn and her friends were capable of seeing beyond the surface of wealth and status to the human beings underneath. The restaurant Lynn had chosen for lunch was exactly what May had expected. Exclusive, expensive, and excessively elegant. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and well-dressed waiters glided silently between tables draped in pristine white cloths. It was the kind of place where the menu didn't list prices, assuming that anyone who needed to ask couldn't afford to dine there. May arrived a few minutes early, dressed in a simple blue dress she often wore to parent-teacher conferences. She'd taken extra care with her appearance today, not out of vanity but as a kind of armor. The hostess led her to a table in a quiet corner where Lynn was already waiting, looking polished in a designer suit. You're early, Lynn remarked, seeming pleased. The others should be here any minute. Would you like something to drink while we wait? Just water, thank you, May replied, settling into her chair. Lynn signaled to a waiter who appeared instantly at their table. Water for Mrs. Zhao, and I'll have another sparkling water with lime. Once the waiter departed, she turned back to May. I wanted to thank you again for joining us today. After our unfortunate first meeting, you would have been justified in refusing. May studied the woman across from her. There was something different about Lynn today, a hint of genuine warmth beneath the polished exterior. Everyone deserves a second chance, she said simply. Before Lynn could respond, two women approached the table, the same women who had been in the elevator that day. They both looked slightly uncomfortable, their usual confidence dimmed. May, these are my friends, Lynn said, gesturing to each woman in turn. Patricia Wang and Diane Quan. Ladies, this is Mei Zhao. Pleased to meet you, Patricia said, extending her hand. She was the shortest of the group, the one who had made the comment about shoes. Today, she couldn't seem to meet May's eyes. Formally, I mean. Yes, we're very glad you agreed to join us, Diane added. She was tall and slender, with an elegance that seemed more natural than practiced. We owe you an apology for our behavior in the elevator. As they all took their seats, May noticed the absence of the fourth woman from the elevator incident. Wasn't there another person with you that day? She asked. The three women exchanged glances. Natalie, Lynn confirmed. She's not joining us. She didn't feel an apology was necessary. I see, May said, unfolding her napkin and placing it in her lap. An awkward silence fell over the table, broken only when the waiter returned to take their orders. Once he departed again, Patricia cleared her throat. My husband told me your husband is Jin Zhao, the tech innovator, she said. He's quite famous in certain circles. Yes, Jin is well known in the tech world, May acknowledged, but he values his privacy. And you're really a kindergarten teacher? Diane asked, curiosity evident in her voice. With your husband's resources, you could do anything. Travel the world, start a foundation, live a life of leisure. Why choose to work with small children every day? The question wasn't asked unkindly, but it revealed so much about these women's worldview. To them, work was something you did out of necessity, not passion. Success meant escaping the need to work at all. I teach because I love it, May explained. There's nothing quite like watching a child's face light up when they finally grasp a new concept. It's magical. Lynn leaned forward slightly. But surely there are other things you enjoy. Shopping, perhaps. Your husband could buy you anything you wanted. May smiled. Jin has always been generous, but I've never been interested in accumulating things. My parents raised me to value experiences over possessions. Your parents, Patricia said carefully, are they My father was a librarian and my mother taught music at a community center, May replied, knowing what Patricia was really asking. They weren't wealthy, but we never lacked for anything important. The waiter arrived with their salads, providing a brief respite from the conversation. As they began to eat, Diane spoke again. How did you and Jin meet, if you don't mind my asking? This was a story May enjoyed telling. At a charity event for literacy. I was there representing my school, and Jin was a major donor. He spent the entire evening talking to me about children's books while billionaires and celebrities tried desperately to get his attention. She laughed at the memory. I had no idea who he was until the end of the night when someone came over and asked for his autograph. And it was love at first sight? Lynn asked, a hint of wistfulness in her voice. Not exactly, May admitted. I thought he was just another rich guy trying to impress a woman by pretending to care about her work. I actually turned down his first dinner invitation. The women looked shocked. You rejected a billionaire? Patricia blurted out. I rejected a stranger, May corrected gently. His bank account wasn't relevant. I needed to know what kind of person he was. And how did he win you over? Diane asked, genuinely curious now. May smiled at the memory. He showed up at my school the next day with a donation of new books for the library, not as a grand gesture, but because I'd mentioned we were short on resources. He didn't ask me out again, he just said he hoped the books would help and left his card in case we needed anything else. That's surprisingly thoughtful, Lynn commented. Jin has always been thoughtful, May said. It's one of his best qualities. Their main courses arrived, and the conversation shifted to the upcoming kindergarten fundraiser. To May's surprise, the women seemed genuinely interested in helping. I was thinking, Lynn said, we could sponsor the new playground equipment entirely. Between our three families, it would be a simple matter. That's very generous, May replied. But the fundraiser isn't just about the money. It's about community involvement. The children sell artwork they've created. The parents contribute baked goods and volunteer their time. Everyone participates, according to their means. Oh, Lynn looked slightly deflated. So you don't want our donation? Your donation would be wonderful, May clarified. But I'd also love your participation. The children would be thrilled to have visitors who take an interest in their work. Patricia looked uncertain. I'm not sure I'd know how to talk to children. I never had any of my own. Just ask them questions about their art, May suggested. Children love to explain their creations. As they continued their meal, the conversation flowed more naturally. May learned that Diane had once dreamed of becoming a dancer before marrying into wealth. Patricia collected rare books but had told almost no one about her passion. And Lynn, beneath her polished exterior, harbored a deep loneliness that she tried to fill with social gatherings and shopping trips. Thomas is always working, Lynn confided when the others were distracted by the dessert menu. Even when he's physically present, his mind is elsewhere, on the next deal, the next acquisition. That must be difficult, May said gently. Lynn's perfectly made-up face showed a flash of vulnerability. How do you and Jin manage it? His company must demand a lot of his time, too. We make each other a priority, May replied simply. Jin works from home when he can. I share stories about my students. We cook dinner together most nights. Small moments, but they add up. Lynn nodded slowly, as if considering this approach for the first time. As they were finishing their desserts, Patricia suddenly said, I saw Natalie this morning at the gym. She asked if we were really having lunch with the kindergarten teacher. Today, a brief tension fell over the table. What did you tell her? Diane asked. Patricia straightened in her chair. I told her that we were having lunch with Mrs. Zhao and that she was missing an opportunity to get to know a remarkable woman. May felt a warmth spread through her chest at the unexpected defense. Natalie has always been status conscious, Lynn explained to May, even more than the rest of us. She paused, then added with unexpected honesty, and that's saying something. The women laughed, a shared moment of self-awareness that bridged some of the distance between them. As they were preparing to leave, Lynn handed May an envelope. For The fundraiser, she explained. And we'll all be there in person too, I promise. Outside the restaurant, as they waited for their respective cars, Diane turned to May. Thank you for giving us a second chance. Most people wouldn't have been so forgiving. We all make mistakes, May replied. It's how we respond to them that matters. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. I've been thinking about what you said about your work, about finding joy in helping children learn. I've been on the board of 3 charities for years, but I've never actually volunteered my time. Maybe I should try that. The school always needs reading volunteers, May suggested. If you're interested? Patricia looked surprised, then pleased. I might be. My book collection isn't doing anyone any good sitting on shelves. Perhaps some of the children's titles could find a better home at your school. As May's car arrived, Jen had insisted on sending a driver today. She turned to the 3 women. I'll see you all at the fundraiser next week. Wouldn't miss it, Lynn assured her. On the drive back to school for the afternoon session, May reflected on the lunch. These women had been cruel to her in the elevator because they'd judged her based on appearances. Today, they'd been kind because they knew she was married to a billionaire, another judgment based on something superficial. But there had been moments, brief glimpses of genuine connection, that suggested they might be capable of seeing beyond wealth and status. Patricia's interest in volunteering, Diane's abandoned dreams of dancing, Lynn's lonely marriage, these were human experiences that transcended economic barriers. The car pulled up at the school just as the children were returning from lunch recess. They spotted May through the fence and waved excitedly, their small faces lighting up with genuine joy. Ms. May, Ms. May, we made something for you, they called. As May thanked the driver and walked toward the playground, she smiled to herself. Next week, these children would meet Lynn, Patricia, and Diane, and perhaps, just perhaps, they would teach the wealthy women what they had taught their teacher long ago, that the truest measure of a person has nothing to do with the clothes they wear or the building they live in. It's what's in their heart that counts. The day of the kindergarten fundraiser arrived with perfect spring weather. Sunshine spilling across the playground, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers. May had been at the school since dawn, helping set up colorful booths where the children would sell their artwork, arranging tables for the bake sale, and hanging streamers from tree branches. Everything looks wonderful, the principal, Mrs. Rivera, said as she surveyed the transformed playground. The children are so excited, and I hear we're having some special guests today. May nodded, adjusting a slightly crooked sign painted by her students. A few residents from Ivory Towers. They've promised a donation for the playground equipment. Mrs. Rivera raised her eyebrows. Ivory Towers? That's quite a change from our usual crowd. How did you manage that? It's a long story, May replied, with a small smile. Let's just say we had an unexpected connection. By 10 o'clock, the fundraiser was in full swing. Parents and neighbors filled the schoolyard, children proudly showed off their artwork, and the air buzzed with conversation and laughter. Jin arrived early, dressed casually in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, immediately rolling up his sleeves to help wherever needed. No sign of your elevator friends yet? He asked May as they arranged cookies on a display table. They'll be here, May said, though a small part of her wondered if the women would actually show up. It was one thing to promise attendance in the controlled environment of an expensive restaurant, quite another to follow through at a noisy elementary school event. As if summoned by her thoughts, a sleek black car pulled up at the school entrance. Lynn emerged first, looking slightly out of place in a designer outfit that was clearly her idea of casual wear. Patricia and Diane followed, both appearing uncertain but determined. May crossed the schoolyard to greet them. You made it. Welcome. To Westridge Elementary. We said we would come, Lynn replied, glancing around at the bustling activity. Although I must admit, it's been years since I've been to a school event. The place looks charming, Diane added, her gaze taking in the children's artwork displayed on colorful boards. Did your students make all of this? May nodded proudly. Every class contributed. My kindergartners focused on painting their dream playground since that's what we're fundraising for. Speaking of which, Patricia said, reaching into her handbag and withdrawing an envelope. We brought our contribution as promised. And I brought something else, she added, gesturing toward the car. The driver opened the trunk, revealing several boxes of children's books. From my personal collection. I thought your school library might appreciate them. May's eyes widened. That's incredibly generous, Patricia. The children will be thrilled. It's nothing, Patricia said, though her expression suggested otherwise. They were just gathering dust in my home. Books should be read, not displayed. As Jin approached to help with the books, May made introductions. Lynn seemed momentarily starstruck meeting the famous tech billionaire in person, but Jin's casual warmth quickly put everyone at ease. So you're the elevator committee, he said with a gentle, teasing tone. May's told me all about you. Lynn flushed slightly. Not our finest moment, she admitted. But hopefully not our last interaction, Diane added. May has been kind enough to give us a second chance. Jin smiled, wrapping an arm around May's shoulders. My wife has excellent judgment about people. If she sees something worth knowing in you, it's definitely there. Before the conversation could continue, a small voice called out, Ms. May! Ms. May! A little boy named Zach came running up, paint smudged on his cheeks. Nobody's buying my picture of the dinosaur playground. They say dinosaurs aren't real playground things. May knelt down to his level. Well, that's just because they lack imagination. A dinosaur slide would be amazing. The boy's face scrunched up. What's lack imagination mean? It means they can't see the wonderful possibilities that you can, May explained. Lynn stepped forward, surprising everyone. I'd like to see this dinosaur playground, she said to the boy. Would you show me? Zach looked up at her, momentarily, shy in the presence of this elegant stranger. Then he nodded and grabbed Lynn's hand, pulling her toward his artwork display with the confidence only a 5-year-old could muster. I hope she knows what she's getting into. Jin chuckled. Once these kids start talking about dinosaurs, they never stop. To everyone's surprise, Lynn spent nearly 20 minutes with Zach, listening intently as he explained every detail of his dinosaur playground design. When she finally returned to the group, she was carrying his painting. This young artist, she announced, has convinced me that every playground should have a Tyrannosaurus Rex slide. I've purchased his concept art to show to my husband's architectural team. Zach beamed with pride, then ran off to tell his friends. You didn't have to do that, May said softly. Lynn's expression was thoughtful. Actually, I think I did. That little boy reminded me of my nephew. So earnest, so full of ideas. I haven't seen my sister's family in years because of some stupid argument about money. She shook her head. Being here today, it makes me realize what I've been missing. As the fundraiser continued, the 3 women found themselves drawn into various activities. Patricia discovered she had a talent for storytelling when she was convinced to read to a group of children. Diane, upon learning that one of the teachers had been trying to organize a dance program without success, offered to connect her with friends from her former dance company. Jin found May near the refreshment table, watching as Lynn helped judge an art contest, taking the responsibility with surprising seriousness. I think your elevator committee is enjoying themselves, he observed. They're full of surprises, May agreed. I wasn't sure they'd fit in here, but they're making a real effort. Jin squeezed her hand. That's your influence. You have a way of bringing out the best in people. The afternoon was winding down when an unexpected guest arrived. Natalie, the 4th woman from the elevator, the one who had refused to join the lunch, stood at the entrance to the schoolyard, looking uncomfortable but determined. Lynn spotted her first. Natalie, what are you doing here? Natalie adjusted her designer sunglasses. Patricia mentioned you'd all be here. I thought I should see what was so special about this place for myself. Her gaze found May across the schoolyard. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the memory of that elevator ride hanging between them. Then May crossed to her, offering a genuine smile. Welcome to Westridge Elementary. The art sale is almost over, but we still have plenty of cookies left. Natalie hesitated, then removed her sunglasses. I didn't come for cookies or artwork. I came to apologize. She glanced around at the children playing, the parents chatting, the sense of community that filled the space. And maybe to understand. Understand what? May asked. Why someone who could have anything would choose this, Natalie gestured at, the modest schoolyard. Why a billionaire's wife would spend her days teaching other people's children for a salary that wouldn't cover one of my handbags. May considered her answer carefully. Because wealth isn't just about money, Natalie. It's about purpose, connection, making a difference in someone's life. She nodded toward a group of children laughing as they played a game. Every day I get to see the future taking shape. What could be more valuable than that? Natalie didn't respond immediately, her gaze moving around the schoolyard as if seeing it with new eyes. Finally, she said, "My mother was a teacher, in a school not unlike this one. I used to be proud of that before I married into money and learned to be ashamed of humble beginnings." The honesty of the admission caught May by surprise. "It's never too late to rediscover that pride," she said gently. By the end of the day, the fundraiser had exceeded all expectations. Between the art sales, bake sale, and the generous donation from Lynn, Patricia, and Diane, now joined by Natalie, the school had more than enough for the new playground equipment. As the last families departed and volunteers began cleaning up, Jin found May sitting on a swing, gently rocking back and forth as she watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, taking the swing beside her. "I was just thinking about that day in the elevator," May replied. "How something that started so unpleasant led to all of this." She gestured to where Lynn and the others were helping teachers take down decorations, looking more relaxed and genuine than May had ever seen them. "You transformed them," Jin said. May shook her head. "No, they transformed themselves. They just needed to see beyond the surface, of me, of this place, of their own lives." Jin reached over to take her hand, his fingers warm against hers. "You know what I love most about you? How you see the possibility in everyone even when they don't see it in themselves." As if to prove his point, Natalie approached them, looking somewhat hesitant. "May, the principal mentioned you're short on reading volunteers for next month. I have some free time on Wednesdays if that would be helpful." May smiled. "That would be wonderful, Natalie. The children would love it." After Natalie walked away, Jin shook his head in amazement. "From mocking you in an elevator to volunteering at your school, that's quite a journey." "Life is full of journeys," May replied, squeezing his hand. "Sometimes the most important ones happen in unexpected places." As they left the schoolyard, hand in hand, May glanced back at the building where she spent her days teaching children about more than just letters and numbers, teaching them about kindness, acceptance, and seeing beyond appearances. The same lessons that had transformed 4 wealthy women who had once judged her by her simple clothes and worn shoes. The lesson was simple, really, though sometimes the hardest to learn. True wealth had nothing to do with the address on your mailbox or the price tag on your clothes. It was found in how you treated others, especially those who could do nothing for you in return. And that was a lesson worth more than all the penthouses in ivory towers.